Hi, this is Olena of olenaballet.com, and welcome to today's live, clearly aligned live, I should say. Good to see you, everyone joining me right now. Let me know what your vibe is in an emoji. Mine is a sparkly one. Like, I ran today in the morning. I had an amazing routine review client earlier. So nice from Canada, Edmonton, Alberta. Yay, Canada, represent. And then I had a beautiful lunch. And finally, I'm here. Yay. Hi, Raquelia. Hi, Rachel Robin Hull. Hi, Miss Andy. So again, guys, the river fairy, she's showing a princess or queen emoji. That is her vibe. That's amazing. I love that. Love it. That's fabulous. So lots to discuss today. I don't even know where to begin, but if you guys have questions, you know what to do in the comments. But I kind of want to talk about anticipating a pimple because it seems to be something that is on your minds. It's something that people reach out to me asking me about. It's something people have commented about a lot, right? And so let's talk about anticipating a pimple first. And later I'm thinking we can talk a little bit about how we lobotomize ourselves. And if you guys don't know what a lobotomy is, it's like a thing that used to be done to cure mental illness, in quotation marks, as in they used to fuck with people's frontal lobes and kind of remove them or fuck with them, and then the people would kind of turn into vegetables. So I want to talk about that today because I think it's just extremely relevant in the acne community and in the world in general, but in the acne community specifically, since that's kind of like a lot of what we discuss, right? So the anticipation of a pimple. Many people, they start freaking out when they get a pimple, right? They'll see something growing, they'll notice it, they'll start freaking out about it. It will ruin their day, it will ruin their life. It will ruin everything, right? But here's the thing. You don't know the future. So what you're doing when you're worrying about a pimple, you're actually creating that pimple. You're manifesting that pimple. You're really making sure that that pimple will say hello to you, right? So instead of worrying about the pimple, for instance, me, I literally had one on my cheek like days ago. It was forming here. You guys maybe saw it on stories, or I had like a little red mark right on my cheek, on my right cheek. And I didn't pay any attention to it. And my thinking was, well, my skincare routine is going to take care of it. So whatever will be, will be. That was my thinking. Guess the fuck what? A few days later, it's just totally flat. There's nothing there. Right? I mean, there's a little red spot left over, but there's nothing there besides that red spot that's flat. You know, nothing turned into anything because I didn't freak the fuck out. I didn't start telling the story of, oh my God, my acne's coming back, as is the case for many people when, you know, they've tried to get clear skin for a long time, and then and maybe they've had consistently clear skin for a while, and then suddenly a pimple will come up, and that's it. The acne's coming back, right? So what's important is to trust yourself, trust your skincare routine, trust your body's ability to heal and not intervene. Because honestly, most of us, we make it so much worse than it ever had to be with our own thinking. Right? We tell the story of, oh my God, what if it pops up like during my meeting tomorrow or during my wedding in a week, right? Like, what if it leaves a scar? Oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then that's the line of thinking, right? That's the rabbit hole down which we go. And with that kind of thinking, we do create our own reality, because with this, you know, fearful, stressful thinking, you're now in fight or flight, okay? You're in fight or flight. Adrenaline is pumping. You're now stressed as fuck. And guess the fuck what? Your body isn't healing that pimple. So you just made it worse. You just made it worse by worrying about it, by giving it attention. But also what you're telling to the universe is, my life is so small. I am so small that today and tomorrow and this whole week, my attention is going to be on this pimple and nothing else. And I'm going to just be upset about it, worried about it, nervous about it, stressed about it, and I'm not going to be doing all the fun stuff I planned because I am now obsessed with this fucking pimple, right? Many people, that's literally what we do. That's the fucking vibe, right? That we are then we're holding that vibe, and we're holding it consistently. We're holding it from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, right? And in the morning, we wake up, we're feeling that spot, we're trying to see, has it grown? And then at the end of the day, we're like looking in the mirror, oh, is it still there? Has it healed yet? Da, da, da. And that's what our lives become when we're anticipating a pimple with a negative mindset, without trusting ourselves, without trusting in our body's innate ability to heal. Simply Maggie blog says, been guilty, haha. I mean, this is so many people where the pimple isn't even there yet, right? The pimple isn't even there yet. That's the point. Have you heard of the, I don't know what it's called, the Shroedinger, shit, let me look it up. Schrodinger's cat? It's Schrodinger's cat. Is a thought experiment, sometimes described as a paradox, devised by Austrian physicist Erwin Schrödinger in 1935. It illustrates what he saw as the problem of the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics applied to everyday subjects. But basically, I want to actually tell you guys. So basically, in simple terms, Schrödinger stated that if you place a cat and something that could kill the cat, like a radioactive atom, in a box and sealed it, you would not know if the cat was dead or alive until you opened the box. So that until the box was open, the cat was in a sense both dead and alive. So what I'm saying is the way we perceive that pimple is kind of like Schrödinger's cat. Schrödinger's, yes, that's the way to say it. As in, we don't know if that pimple will pop up or it will heal, right? It might heal without actually coming to a head, without causing any scarring, without making a big fucking mess, right? We're not sure which way it's gonna go, but instead of practicing being a deliberate fucking creator, and instead of trusting that the universe is supporting you, we fall into fear, we lose all trust, and instead of creating that really, really positive and awesome and easy outcome, we're focusing so hard on the negative outcome that we end up creating that, right? The more we stress about the pimple, obviously, the more likely it is to actually show up as a pimple, right? So that's what I mean. It's just the awareness, the choice to focus on the positive potential or the negative potential. And most of us, we choose the negative potential, and then the pimple does come up. And then instead of dealing with it, instead of being like, that's okay, the pimple's out, no worries, I'm just going to cover it up and go on with my day. Do you think people do that? Most people? No. A lot of people, when the pimple is now out, because you focus so hard on it and stressed about it, now it's out, okay? When it's out, instead of just covering it up and going on with your day and enjoying your day, going on dates, having fun, etc., people are now, now obsessed with a pimple. What can I do? Should I pop it? Ooh, should I put a fucking Mario Badescu's drying lotion on it? Ooh, should I drink more water? Should I take all these fucking supplements? I don't know. Should I go see a fucking esthetician and get it extracted? Oh, no. I'll go see a dermatologist and have a cortisone shot. So yeah, usually people then make their whole day the pimple, now that the pimple's out. But again, before the pimple was even out, that's now your whole day is your pimple. But it's the impending pimple, right? But now the pimple's out, so your whole day is, that's it, pimple, pimple, pimple. I'm gonna tell all my friends about my fucking pimple. I'm gonna take pictures of the pimple so I can document it for fucking posterity, right? And that's it. That's it. Your life becomes your fucking pimple. And we have to stop this kind of myopic bullshit. Like, you're a deliberate creator. You're not a fucking pimple watcher, right? You're not a pimple watcher. You're not a pimple creator. You're not an acne sufferer. Because here's the thing, guys. This is very, very important. This is where it's about to get extremely good. You either are an acne sufferer or you're either a person with clear skin, but you cannot be both. So, meaning you choose one and that's it. That's fucking it. Because if you're a clear-skinned person, you're not waking up feeling your skin, right? You're not touching your skin throughout the day and finding opportunities to look at your skin in the mirror because you trust that my skin is healing. Period. There is no point for me to wake up first thing and be like, what's this? What's this, right? And then there's no point for me to be looking for mirrors everywhere I go. Oh my God, did my makeup move? Can people still, can they see it? Like, you know, right? There's no point. If you're somebody with clear skin, that's not something you're gonna be engaged in, period, right? And at the end of the day, you're gonna remove your makeup. You're not gonna pop anything because you have clear skin. If you choose to be a clear-skinned person, you're not going to be behaving like somebody who's an acne sufferer. Because conversely, an acne sufferer will wake up thinking about the pimples first thing in the morning, thinking about the pimples the entire fucking day, thinking about the pimples before going to bed, thinking about the pimples the next morning, thinking about the pimples again the whole day, using the pimples as an excuse for why you're not hanging out with this person or that person, using the pimples as an excuse for why you're staying at home, you know, not going to that party that you got invited to, using the pimples as an excuse for why you're not going on the date, right? Using the pimples as an excuse for why you're not going for the acting gig, right? That is a acne sufferer, and that is an acne sufferer's way of behaving and thinking, right? So you choose, who the fuck are you? Because many people, they don't make a conscious choice, and so they just let their past thinking determine their present and therefore their future. So if in the past you've always been worried about your fucking face and your skin, and that's all you've been focused on, then of course you're bringing that into the present and into the fucking future because you're not making any changes. So changes require change, right? If you want to see changes, you got to change. But many people, they're like, no, I'm just going to do the same old thing. I'm going to think the same old way, but yet I'm going to expect to heal. And then when I don't heal, I'll just complain about it, and complain about it. And such behavior is not the behavior of a clear-skinned person. Does this make sense? Let me see what you guys are saying. Sophia Jardina says, tips for learning to trust. Ooh, okay, I will read that later because that will take it will be a longer answer. Rashmi says, Schrodinger's cat. So you guys know what Schrodinger's cat is, and Riz Lane is laughing at me. Amazing. Yeah, so what I'm suggesting is you choose to be a deliberate creator, and you choose to be a clear-skinned person, meaning that if you decide you want to have clear skin, you're going to have clear skin. And if you decide that from now on I'm a person who has clear skin, and then you can no longer entertain the thoughts of an acne sufferer, you can no longer entertain the behaviors of an acne sufferer. Otherwise, you'll create more of the same. Does this make sense? This brings me to my next point. In being a deliberate creator, that requires being deliberate. And this is extremely important what I'm about to say because I'm going to get to the whole lobotomizing ourselves thing, right? The River Fairy says, yes, makes tons of sense. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Thank you. So being a deliberate creator means being deliberate. I'm saying something that sounds obvious, but so being deliberate means using your prefrontal cortex. Sorry, your frontal cortex, your neocortex, your frontal lobes, right here, okay? This is the most important part of our brains. I mean, okay, our whole brains are fucking important, but this part is the newest part. It's the brain's executive. It's connected to every other part of the brain and controls like every process in your body. This, the executive, is right fucking here. And you would notice that kings in the past, right, when they would put a crown on a king, it was often right here. And it was to signify that the king had a good mind to lead a nation or an empire or whatever the fuck, right? This was also true for athletes. Like during the Olympics, they put a crown on the athlete. It just meant that he had more will than the average person, right? Because this right here is so important. This executive is responsible for our willpower, for our freedom of choice, which is very, very fucking important. Freedom of choice, right here. Willpower, freedom of choice, and also intention. I mean, if you had to sum up the frontal lobes in one word, it would be intention. Now, why is this important? Because not all of us use our willpower, our freedom of choice, meaning not all of us even choose. Not all of us are free. We think we're free. We think we're making choices. We think we're taking deliberate actions. We think we're thinking deliberately, but often we're not. And that just fucking means we're not free. That we're actually at the mercy of our programming, okay? And being at the mercy of our programming means that we're thinking the same habitual shit and therefore usually practicing the same habitual behaviors. And what's interesting is that once upon a time when people were lobotomized, where their prefrontal cortex, you know how they would do this? They would, I mean, I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable because it's a terrible situation and it made me really sad when I read about it, but they would take mental patients. It could have been any kind of personality disorder, could have just been anxiety, didn't matter. And while the patient was sleeping, they would take the patient, sedate the patient, put a scalpel in each one of the patient's eye and do a windshield wiper kind of motion to fuck with the frontal lobes, basically disabling all the stuff. So the frontal lobes didn't work anymore. And so in the beginning, the person would be very lethargic, unmotivated. Willpower, hello, willpower, intentions, right? So the person wouldn't really set intentions, wouldn't be able to set any goals whatsoever. But more importantly, the person wouldn't be able to learn new information or adjust to the environment. So, you know, if new information was coming in, the person couldn't do anything with that new information. They would just go back to their habitual patterns, but to the point where it would become really hard for them to live because they would just do the same thing over and over and over again. And if something in their environment was too surprising, or, you know, where they were doing something and say something fell, they could lose their shit. Like they could have like a crazy emotional breakdown because they need predictability. Because when the prefrontal cortex, the frontal lobes aren't activated, then the midbrain is activated, and the midbrain is more to do with patterns and habits. So more your subconscious working rather than because the executive here, the frontal lobes, this is consciousness. This is where your conscious thinking is. When you make a conscious decision to do something that's different from your past shit, right? That's you using your frontal lobes. But many of us don't realize that over time, we become accustomed to certain thoughts and behaviors where our frontal lobes are no longer activated. And when our frontal lobes aren't activated, then we're not using our freedom of choice. Now we're not free anymore. We're not even choosing. So essentially what we do is lobotomize ourselves with our emotions. What we do is when we think the same things, those same thoughts that are on repeat, because often we're not being creative, okay? So we'll have the same thoughts on repeat, like, oh my God, a pimple. Oh my God, it's gonna come out. What are people gonna think? Oh, people are gonna think I'm ugly. Oh my God, I am ugly. Why is this happening to me? Blah, blah, blah. Let's say that's the thoughts that you have every single fucking day. Then imagine the emotions that you're feeling, not very positive ones, right? You're probably frustrated, you're desperate, you're sad, you might be ashamed, you might feel insecure, like all kinds of things, right? So that's what those thoughts that are on repeat are creating in your biochemistry in your body. And your body, when it has the same biochemistry over and over and over again, it becomes addicted to it. It keeps wanting that same stimulus to produce that same biochemistry because it becomes comfortable for the body, right? So the body now craves the habit of that shameful, guilty, frustrated thinking. And so instead of you thinking new thoughts about how wonderful your life is, you then go back to the same old thoughts. So what's interesting is it starts with the mind, but later, once the body's biochemistry is involved in the process, and once you start craving that biochemistry, the body starts utilizing the mind to think those same thoughts again on a repeat, and it becomes this auto loop where one feeds the other. So it's your mind feeding the body and the body feeding the mind. And this happens to a lot of people. And what I'm talking about is literally just habitual behaviors now, as in habitual thoughts that turn into habitual behaviors and self-sabotage and all kinds of stuff. And the loss of your executive function, essentially lobotomizing yourself. Does this make sense? And of course, I'm reading a book on the brain, so this is fascinating stuff to me. But basically, it's either you use your executive function here, it's either you make a choice, or the choice is made by your body anyway. And sometimes your programming is a bunch of limiting beliefs on top of limiting beliefs, and thoughts about how terrible you are, how hard life is, how horrible acne is, and how you'll have it forever, whatever. It doesn't matter. But if you don't override the subconscious program by using your frontal lobes, then your body will run the show, especially if it's used to a certain biological chemistry in the form of, consistent emotions. That's why, when you've been ashamed or depressed or whatever for a long time, it's hard to get out of that because your body wants to create more of that biochemistry because it's so used to it. Oh, man. Raquelia says, so true. Seems like our minds and body are wanting to get us back to our comfort zones we've created. I got to break that cycle. Exactly. This is a self-imposed comfort zone that is being created by the mind and the body. And unless you make any changes consciously by using your frontal lobes, you're going to literally play out the same scenario until you die. And of course, this works like this. I hope I just explained this to you in a biological sense, but from a law of attraction perspective, it totally works because you create a certain vibration that's consistent, whether it's frustration or guilt or whatever, and thereby you will practice the same thoughts and behaviors that will continue to create that same vibration. Right? So you'll keep attracting people into your experience and seeing situations from a perspective of frustration and guilt or shame or whatever. And you'll keep creating that for yourself over and over and over again until you decide to change something. Because this guy, the executive, still runs the show. It's just, are we using the executive? Again, I'm referring to our frontal lobe. Or are we just sitting on our asses and letting shit happen to us? This is extremely, extremely important. Extremely fucking important. Rashmi says, yes, I can relate. Let's see. So many people are not aware of how their brain works, how their body works. And what's frustrating to me is that this stuff isn't taught in fucking schools. The basics of our fucking mind and body and how it fucking works together and how like our thoughts can reinforce actions and then can reinforce thoughts and put us in a vicious cycle of being basically victims of our subconscious, right? And it's shocking to me that we're taught all this nonsense in school, about how cells and blah, 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 like just the basics, like in biology, and not this. Like this stuff is actually practical and like, it's like we're given this amazing piece of machinery, our bodies, and then nobody teaches us how to use them. But again, if you're so interested in improving your life, then I think it would interest you to learn how your brain works, how your body works, how everything fucking works, how the universe works, so that you can navigate this experience with more ease, right? Because the more you know, the better it is. The more perspectives you're introduced to, the more new information, the easier, of course, it is to break that pattern, isn't it? So that's why new experiences, new information, new thoughts, new behaviors are so fucking important for the brain. So that because when we learn anything new stuff, our prefrontal cortex here, our neocortex, our frontal lobes, they're utilized. That's where there's a lot of action right here, because the brain is learning. He's going, oh, wow, this is something new. So that's when we utilize this. You know when else? When we focus. When we focus on something awesome, like say we're reading a book and we're focusing on the information at hand, and we don't even know what's going on around us, that's us using our frontal lobes. When else? When we're meditating, we're using our frontal lobes. People who meditate a lot, like monks, when they literally meditate for hours a day, what develops? Their frontal lobes. So this area of the brain, the frontal lobe area, gets bigger, right? Because you can actually grow your brain. by using certain parts of your brain, you can grow them. You can create new brain cells, and it's fucking amazing. And there used to be this theory that the bigger your brain, the more intelligent you are, but it's really the bigger your prefrontal cortex, the more willpower you can execute, right? The more free will you have to choose what you want and actually, accomplish your goals, right? Because it's when this part of the brain that suffers that you don't set goals and you don't go after them. Because your willpower and your intention is fucked. You have no intentions. You're no longer a deliberate creator, right? So we have to use our power of choice and our willpower, our freedom, to choose thoughts that feel good. New thoughts all the time. We have to use our imagination to create the lives we actually want to live, instead of living past programs out without even using our fucking frontal lobes. Because, again, we often do this too when we're stressed, when we're choosing to be stressed, to worry about shit. We're activating our midbrain. We're not using our frontal lobes. People who are chronically stressed become dumber because the frontal lobes are not being used. You're always kind of reacting with your midbrain, right? So if you don't use it, you fucking lose it when we talk about the brain. So I just thought I would share this with you guys so that you understand how important it is to take charge of your own experience, to have new experiences, to not be afraid to get out of your comfort zone, because really it's the survival of your frontal lobes that fucking depend on it. Because it becomes harder each time. Like if you're somebody who's always distracted and like from old thought to old thought to old thought to old thought, like an acne sufferer, as opposed to a clear-skinned person, right? Then it will be harder for you to get your executive function back. You're gonna have to train your frontal cortex so much harder than somebody who has been working on it for longer than you, and who has been aware of this, and who has been choosing better feeling thoughts over and over and over again, and having a better feeling program run their subconscious. Does this make sense? Let me see. Dre Christina says, when I started speaking positive affirmations, it was so hard, but over time, it's become second nature, building a new habit, new way of thinking. Exactly. In the beginning, it may be difficult, but with focus and choosing, you can do it. Any of us can. Our brains are extremely flexible. So even though I'm saying that, it becomes harder, sure, it becomes a little harder, but like if you're not using your fucking prefrontal cortex and you're living your life out of habit, always in fear and worry and negative thinking, yeah, it's going to be hard in the beginning. But The brain is so flexible. It's made in this absolutely miraculous way that if you just want it, it's going to happen. If you want it and you follow through on it and you fucking practice, it's going to happen. Just as Christina said, it becomes natural, right? Me too. I used to have more worry and stress thoughts. They were more natural to me. I mean, they weren't like more natural than positive thinking, but they were more common, especially when I was surrounded by negative people, etc. And I didn't know that I was a deliberate creator. And so I wasn't really deliberately creating. I was more responding to my environment rather than creating my circumstances, right? So once I became aware that I actually had a choice to make, then I started making that choice. But it's a choice that we have to make almost every single moment of every single day. Especially in the beginning when it's hard to make that choice, to think positively, to reframe the current situation in a way that serves you. Right? In the beginning, it can be a little challenging, but you have to catch yourself every single fucking time because nobody else is going to do that for you. Right? And again, it's either you are the executive or you become the slave. So you're either using your prefrontal cortex or you're using your midbrain and you become a slave of your subconscious programming. And if you haven't worked on your subconscious programming, then good luck. Because that can be a very twisted kind of situation to go through. Rashmi says, there is so much value in this new information. Appreciate you so much. My pleasure. Rugal says, how to create your life. And by using your fucking imagination. How do you create your life? How do you create your life? You become... It's a good question. You create your life by creating your life. That will involve actually thinking about what it is that you want, right? Choosing what it is that you want for yourself. Like some people, other people tell them, so you're going to be, I don't know, you're going to work for this corporation and you're going to have this many kids and you're going to get married then and you're going to do this and and that's how your life is going to look. You know, some people live in societies like that where it's the people in their lives who kind of determine what they do, right? And of course, imagine, like that's total midbrain life right there. It's not a prefrontal cortex life, right? So what we each have to do is actually decide what we want. And many of us don't. We just look around, but that person has this, maybe I want that. And so we become, again, lobotomized. We're to the point where we don't know what the fuck we want. So then it makes sense to get outside your comfort zone and try different things and see what makes you happy, right? Find your joy and do more of that. That is literally it. I know it sounds so fucking simple, but that is life. That is how you create the life you want. You figure out what makes you happy and then you do more of that. And life will present you with opportunities to expand all the time. Just many of us were so afraid of that expansion that we'll just like get into fear, midbrain, lobotomize ourselves. Right? That's what ends up happening. Rugal says, thank you for spending your time for us and sharing this amazing information. Yeah, my pleasure. Raquelia says, I had a very rude lady in my small town say to my daughter yesterday that I must be so jealous of her because she's too pretty and far outshines my sisters and I. Okay. I'm sure there's another message coming, clarification. Small town, is it Saskatchewan that you're in or Winnipeg? Or not Winnipeg, but Manitoba, I forgot, because you're somewhere in Canada. She says, this was such an awful comment for an adult to say to a child in front of her mom, and of course it brought up old feelings of being self-conscious. But, okay, so this comment says nothing about you at all. But of course, it can trigger old patterns of thinking. But given that you're a fucking adult and you have a prefrontal cortex that you can use that prefrontal cortex to reason with yourself before you start going down that rabbit hole. Because we always have a choice, right? We have a choice to react with old programming or respond with a new response. And all that it takes is a moment. It's like I told you, you can either focus on the fucking anticipation of the pimple and it being like a for sure thing, or you can trust in your body's healing, right? You always have a choice, and it only takes a moment to actually make that choice. What is your intention? Is it healing, or is it, struggle and the worst stuff. And it's the same with this comment. You have a choice of whether it's going to affect you or whether you're going to be smarter than that, right? Whether you're going to go with the old programming or whether you're going to create new programming. I mean, and it also matters how you talk about this in front of your daughter, right? Like, what are you showing her? Because Raquelia says, yes, it did trigger old feelings for sure, just trying to talk myself out of being upset. But what is there to be upset about? Some lady made a dumbass comment. People always make comments. You're going to get upset about people's comments left and right. That's you giving your power away. That's you being like, nope, I'm not a deliberate creator. Deliberation, intention, going to turn that shit off. I'm just going to use my midbrain and fucking react to this the way I've always reacted to this ever since I was fucking 13, right? Does this make sense? The only person that could have a new response is you. The only person that could reprogram old programming is you. The only person who can have the power or give her power away is you. People will always have comments. They'll always say things. But these are opportunities for us to heal our old wounds. And though this person may have said something from an uncentered place, a place of out of alignment, but if you're in alignment, then it can't touch you, right? Raquelia says, got it, thanks. Yeah, so what I'm saying is that many of us, when we hear criticism, blah, 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 that's exactly when our midbrain will kick in. It will be that old program of when I was insecure, when I was 12, oh my God, about my looks, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not 12 anymore. I'm fucking 30. And if I don't like what the lady says, I'll be like, excuse me, what the fuck did you just say? Say that again. Like, if you ask a person to repeat what they just said, likely they'll be too ashamed to actually repeat it. But you can nicely tell the person that I don't really appreciate your comment. I'm not sure what you're trying to imply with your motherfucking dumbass comment. But many of us are too afraid to have a new response. Oh, somebody's criticizing me, I'm just gonna take it up the fucking butt. It's like, no, if somebody's criticizing you and you don't disagree, and you disagree with what they're saying, speak out. Practice a new way of responding. You can speak out. You can argue if you want. But I mean, it doesn't have to be an argument, like a disagreement, but as in, what's the difference? It doesn't have to turn into a fight, but you can have a fucking disagreement with a person. You can communicate through it, and it's cool. And then instead of harboring the resentment and those feelings, you would have dealt with it right there and then and moved on with your day, right? Instead, we take it home, we think about it. What does this mean about me? It's like, but somebody complimented your daughter. That's all that it really means. But the person had a really awkward way of saying it. That's all. So it's like, if somebody compliments your daughter in a weird way, you just say thank you. I mean, people have always told me that I look like my mom or that we look like sisters, and then they'd see us and they'd be like, oh, you guys look like sisters. If I was, triggered by that, I'd be like, oh my God, people think I look 45 or whatever. Right? Like, I could take it that way, or I could be like, my mom's a gorgeous woman. She's always been gorgeous. If anybody compares the two of us, then I'm just gonna take that as a fucking compliment, and I'm just, it's more a compliment to my mom, but I'll be like, yeah, great, my mom looks way younger for her age, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like, I choose to see it from an aligned place rather than a place of out of alignment. And there's always a fucking choice. But this guy, the prefrontal cortex, this is literally where alignment happens. And truth. You being able to see the truth and from an aligned place, because I told you guys, you can't see truth from an out of alignment place when you're misaligned. You can't. It's unavailable to you. So you'll be like, ooh, maybe I am ugly, and then you'll start believing that when you're out of alignment, of course, right? But that's the only time you'll believe it. You won't believe it when you're in alignment. Raquelia says, I said to her, there's no such thing as too pretty, but I also felt like I shouldn't put her in her place about suing my daughter to backhandedly cut me down. About using my daughter, I see. I felt like I shouldn't have said that and stood up for myself. Totally not my way. Yeah, because you're old. Does your way serve you? Not my way. Right? We put ourselves in these boxes like, no, I don't do that. But why not? Right? Like, if somebody's rude to me, like, I'll be like, what the fuck? What did you just say? And then people see my face and they'll be like, wait, I didn't, I'm like, what did you say? But I was so on the verge of saying, pardon me. Yeah, you should. If somebody's being rude to you, you can. But if you don't handle it and you just take it, then you can't really be mad at the person later because you had the opportunity to say what you wanted to say, but you didn't take it. So you were too chicken shit, right? And I'm not saying this to insult you, but if you were too chicken shit in the situation to handle it when you could have handled it, then now you can't be like, this lady's so bad. No, the lady's fine. The lady gave you an opportunity to stand up for yourself and you didn't take it. So the next time you have this opportunity, take it. But don't take it out on every single person that's ever insulted you, right? On the next person that chooses to insult you, right? Does this make sense? Because a lot of us, we just take our old shit with us into the present and then we take it out on the next person that we can take it out on. That's not life. That is not responding. That's still reacting, right? So the response always has to fit the punishment has to fit the crime, right? And of course, we want to respond in a way that is most loving and aligned. But when we practice alignment consistently and somebody treats us this way, then we can have a conversation with them. And whatever we feel like doing in that moment will feel good. Even if it's hard, it will still feel good, right? And you could have taken the lady aside and been like, left your daughter, I don't know how old your daughter is, but, been like, excuse me, I'm going to have a conversation with this lady for a moment. What the fuck did you say? I'm totally kidding. But like, to me, again, if I heard a comment like this, it wouldn't ruin my day and it wouldn't be something I would be discussing that day, the next day, or a week later, because it wouldn't even affect me, right? Because when you're in alignment, you see things clearly and you see, okay, somebody said something stupid when they're out of alignment. I don't care. Like, right? Does this make sense? So it's never about the other person, once again, but if you feel as though you needed to stand up for yourself or had to, if you are having a mental conversation with this person while you're in the shower, then maybe it makes sense to next time, instead of giving yourself, what's the word? Instead of not dealing with it in the moment, dealing with it in your mind for like a fucking week later, I think it's better just to deal with it in real life, to not have that pretend conversation with yourself in your own mind, and that's it. Life always will give us opportunities to heal our old shit, but sometimes we don't take those opportunities because, of course, taking those opportunities would mean using the executive, our frontal lobes, doing something new, responding in a new way, and that might feel terrifying, but it isn't. Like, you can't fail. You're a deliberate creator. You can do whatever the fuck you want. She used the words that my daughter far outshines me, so I felt it was a pretty bitchy comment. Anyway, I should have said something for sure in the moment. If you felt like it, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't have it, but if you're going to talk about it later and you're going to complain about a lady's behavior, like, who the fuck is this lady? Who the fuck cares what she thinks of you? Like, unless it's your fucking mother, who cares? Right? And even if it's your mother, if you are in alignment, you will also know that, your parents, they can say shit. Doesn't matter. Like, if you know who you are, then how can anybody's opinion of you sway you? And I think this is actually a big issue in the acne community, because I've seen people be like, oh my God, somebody said something about my acne, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I've never attracted somebody who said something about my acne. Like, okay, maybe once a close person in my life when I was like fucking 13. But since then, it's not something I attract in my experience, because I'm not fucking practicing insecurity left and right and insecure thoughts left and right. And I'm thinking about other fucking things besides my skin, right? So, But in the acne community, if someone's like obsessed with their skin and they're insecure as fuck, then they're probably sending out vibes where people think to comment on their skin, right? And if people are like, have you tried Accutane yet? Or have you tried washing your face? And people will say dumb shit. But if you're out of alignment, then you'll have that shit trigger you. And then you're going to go online, post a photo on Instagram of your skin and be like, somebody looked at my skin today and made a comment and to tell me to wash my face. Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, of course they did, because you've been sending out this horrendous vibe of desperation and shame that people are like They want to help you, but they don't know how because they're not fucking acne experts, right? So they're actually doing it from a well-intentioned place. They're not doing it to insult you, but you're insulted because you were insulted already. Okay, you're insulted by your own fucking vibe. Because honestly, our bad vibes, they insult our inner being. Like, we are more than that. Our highest self is not somebody who cares about skin shit, who cares about people's opinions. Our highest self knows our worth, but we haven't caught up with our highest self yet. So we'll get offended all the time, left and right. But we don't realize that we're only offended by our own fucking limited thinking. And that's the only thing that is actually offensive. Oh, I hope that made sense because holy fuck. Raquelia says, yes, please relate to okay. She says, please relate this to acne. Yes. I just did. The River Fairy says, insulted by your own vibe. So spot on, haha. That's exactly what ends up happening. Because we are deliberate creators. We're magnificent beings. We're infinitely powerful. So making our attention be about some insecurity or another is so out of vibration, so on a different frequency from what our inner being knows to be true, that it is like insulting. It's like, bitch, do you even know who you are? You're fucking amazing. And you right here, you're thinking about some fucking lady or whatever. But Raquel, it's not just you. It's literally every single person has that lady in their lives. You know, that lady that insults you. But that lady is a reflection of what? Your vibe. Right? So until we work on that worth inside and like fucking become that badass bitch that you are, that stubborn ass bitch, right? Who knows her worth, and if anybody else doesn't, she's like, well, you must not understand then. And it doesn't bother you that somebody else doesn't understand your worth because you understand your worth, then it's game over. Then it's game over. Then these little ladies in our lives who have the comments, they disappear. And their comments cease having any power over our experience, okay? So again, our reality is a reflection of our vibes, and that's a hard pill to swallow, I know. But that is just the truth of it. It's law, okay? So again, our vibes will fluctuate if that's what we choose. But if we use the executive here, our prefrontal cortex, then we can choose consistently high vibes. We can choose not to entertain those old limiting, dumb fucking thoughts. Oh, I'm not enough. Oh, I'm unattractive. Oh, nobody cares except you. Like literally nobody cares. Like that's what I want to say to every person who's like, what do I do with my pimple? I'll be like, nobody fucking cares about your pimple. Nobody fucking cares. Right? You're the only one who fucking cares. You're the only one that will make it of your whole day or your whole week or your whole existence. But here's the interesting thing about our thoughts is whatever we think, it actually, like whatever thought we focus on, it becomes real for us. You notice when you're thinking about something, like you're thinking, and you're so deeply entrenched in your thought that you'll actually lose all sense of self. You'll forget where you are. You won't feel space anymore. Space or time will fucking disappear when you're focused on a thought. Now, for a lot of people, that thought is acne, 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 acne. Or my skin sucks. Or, oh, life is so hard. Oh, life is so unfair. Or something like that. So that becomes that person's reality because of just the attention to that thought. But similarly, what if the focus of your thinking was, I don't know, some amazing goal you want to achieve, right? Like for me, it's to fucking finish my program. That is my next goal. It's a big one. It's a big goal. To the point where it slightly terrifies me, but in like a good way. I know it's what I'm meant to complete and so blah, blah, blah. But what if that was my single-minded focus? Of course, I would complete that goal really quickly and really, really well, and it would be inspired and amazing, right? But many people, they don't use this, I'm pointing to the brain, in a way that serves them. Like if you focus on the solution, the inspiration, the alignment, if that's your fucking single-minded focus, then you're good. But if your single-minded focus is the problem, then, enjoy the fucking problem. And so meditation is a way to actually practice focusing on your breath. But what it teaches you is focusing, period. Because many of us, we don't even know how to focus anymore because we've been so distracted by dumbass shit left and right, those dumbass thoughts, etc., scrolling, whatever, telling ourselves dumb stories about how the world works that don't serve us, etc. Did I say etc. lots of times? Whatever. So I hope that this was a valid perspective that you will consider, and you'll start using your frontal lobes more to make new choices. New choices are important. So read new books, watch new TV shows, watch new movies, get out there, make new friends, go visit new places, new. It's really amazing for your fucking frontal lobes, okay? And when you can't actually do new stuff, think new thoughts. Use your fucking imagination to paint a new picture of your life. That's the point. Because if you have a really well-imagined life, like how you want your life to look in, say, 10 years, because that's a really good timeline to aim for. In 10 years, this is what I want my life to look like, because then you have plenty of time to achieve that shit, right? So if that's what you then focus on, anytime you have a bad moment, when something tough enters your experience, something unexpected, something whatever, and your mind goes to my life from in 10 years, how that looks like, it's an instant pick-me-up. It's your happy place, right? But it's also, if you can practice like shifting your attention from the shittiness of the present moment and into this imagined future, then that imagined future will actually come into your fucking experience faster because you're focusing on what you want instead of what you don't want, right? It's just so cool how the world works, how the brain works, how all of this stuff works. We're given all the tools. We have all of the answers inside of us. Like, we don't have to do much except tend to our own fucking vibration. That's it. Be careful with your own thoughts, right? So, yeah. Rashmi says, I want to watch this again. Network issues, unable to watch at all. This advice is so awesome. Please upload this. I will upload this, and this will also go on our Clearly Aligned podcast. Yay! All right, how much time do we have left? I think we're just about done. Tomorrow I'll answer some more of your questions, but I really wanted to talk about how habitual thinking and habitual behaviors can keep us really, really stuck, but from a brain science perspective, because, we can talk law of attraction all day long, but there's an actual physical background to this stuff. Like, law of attraction is not bullshit, guys. This is literally how the universe works. It's so fucking cool. So, yeah, once we understand how our brain works, it's easier to make better decisions all around that serve us, that create the experience that we actually want. And then we don't have to continuously live out our past. Because that would be shitty, right? Like living out your past over and over and over again. So like that experience with the lady, right? Maybe your past self would have gotten upset, but then what about your new self, your present self? Would she get upset? Probably not. But that reaction was the old one. So instead of reacting, we have to learn to respond to the present moment. But many of us aren't fucking present. And here's the thing. The prefrontal cortex, right here, the frontal lobes, they only really know the present. As in, whatever you focus on becomes your present with your frontal lobes. So anyway, what I'm saying is don't resist the present. Enjoy the present. Learn from the present. You have all of the miracles in the present, right? But many of us, again, we just react to the present as though it was the past. But it isn't the past. So we have to stop dragging the shit from the past into the present every chance we get. Okay? That's the answer. I mean, The answers are really fucking simple. Rashmi says, wow, that was fabulous. Simply Maggie blog says, can you recommend a good book on this topic before ending this? Yes. Evolve Your Brain. If you want to learn about your brain and literally everything I'm talking about today, then read Evolve Your Brain by Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's amazing. Evolve Your Brain teaches you all the stuff that I talked about today, but far, far more. It's all about how the brain works and how it controls the body. And once you learn this book, the body will be a fucking cakewalk. Oh, and living your dream life too. Like, it becomes a cakewalk when you understand that you have to drive the ship, otherwise the ship will drive you, okay? Simply Maggie blog says, thank you. My pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on today's Clearly Aligned Live. I hope it maybe helped you shift your perspective a little bit, see things a little more clearly, in a more aligned way. I also hope that it empowers you. I ultimately want all of these lives to empower you, to make you feel like this badass that you are. You're nothing less than that, okay? But sometimes we forget who we are, and we pretend like we're small, and we pretend like we're offended. We got to stop pretending, okay? All right, my darlings. This was Olena of OlenaBelay.com. I will talk to you on the next Clearly Aligned Live. Have a beautiful day. And remember, keep that vibe way the fuck up, okay? Raquelia says, thank you, Olena. My pleasure. See you next time.